So I have a pretty big build plan for this 4Runner, and I've spent the last couple months figuring out what exactly I need to lift this thing. So in this video today, I want to cover the top 5 things I think you need to know when you're considering lifting your 4Runner. And my goal for this video is really to summarize all of the different research that I've done over the last couple months, watching a bunch of different videos and reading a bunch of different 4Runner forums and threads, summarize that into a video so you can check out one video, just this video, and have a pretty good base knowledge of what you need to consider when lifting your 4Runner. So let's get into it. Here's the top 5 things I think you need to know. So the first decision I think you really need to make is what tire size do you want to go with? Everything that you do to your 4Runner when you're lifting it kind of revolves around that. When it comes to tires, the most common that you see on most people running larger tires on their 4Runner is 275 or 285 70/17s. Now, both of those tires will fit pretty much any 4Runner without a ton of cutting and trimming and lifting, okay? You can fit those on a fairly stock 4Runner. You might need to push some things around a little bit, but they should fit. I wanted to go a little bit larger. I wanted to go 285 75/17s, which are 33.8 inches. They're almost a 34-inch tire. 34s, if you like to round up. I do. I'm going to call them 34s. And that requires quite a bit more lifting. So start there. I'd say the largest you can go without doing a large lift and then having to do things like a body mount chop, which we'll talk about, is 285 70/17s. If you do a 2-inch to 2.5 to 3-inch lift in the front, 2 to 3 inches, and then, 1 to 2 inches in the back, you'll clear 285 70s pretty easily. It's the most commonly recommended tire size for the 4Runner. So if you just want something moderate that's still pretty big, that's where you start. If you want to go a little bit bigger, think about 34s, and that's what I decided to do. After you've figured that out, then you also might want to consider, based on the tire size and how much you're going to have to lift it and what you're going to have to clear, when you're buying wheels, you're going to want to think about what wheel offset do you want to get. So a positive wheel offset, contrary to popular belief, a positive wheel offset sucks the wheel into the fender well more, which actually makes it easier to clear larger tires. I think a lot of people think when you do negative offset, it pushes the wheel out and makes it easier to clear larger tires. And that's actually not true, because the wheel arc gets bigger when you have a negative offset. So you have to cut more when you have a more negative offset to get that poke that you want. I personally went with a 0 offset, which is actually a larger, more outward offset than the stock TRD off-road wheels. I think these are a +15 offset. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of lifting, a little bit of cutting. So let's talk about the next thing. The next thing is suspension. And real quick, guys, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is LazFit. LazFit sent me these floor mats for the front and rear of the 4Runner, and I decided to try them out. And to my surprise, they were actually awesome. I'm really, really enjoying these floor mats. Some of the things that I like about them are they are wider, longer and wider than the factory floor mats. So I have the cloth floor mats in my 4Runner, and these things are way better. All-weather floor mats are the way to go, particularly in a vehicle like the 4Runner, because if your feet are dirty from the mud or the snow or whatever it is, the pollen in Georgia, the floor mats collect everything. It doesn't leak through to your carpet, and you can take them out easily and rinse them off. The LazFit floor mats also lock in just like your OEM floor mats. They're super clean. They fit perfectly. I installed them in about 15 minutes, not even. And they've just been really, really awesome, and they give the 4Runner a really clean look on the inside. They also have the replacement for the tailgate. The kit comes with the tailgate floor mat as well, which is great. I really love having the tailgate floor mat, and it goes a step further than that. It actually replaces, and not replaces, but adds a floor mat to the back of your rear seat. So when you fold down your rear seat, you have a floor mat there as well. So that's a really big game changer if you're loading things that are rough into your vehicle and you fold the seats flat and you don't want to mess up the felt on the back of the rear seats. So I really have liked that about these. It sticks on with Velcro, and it's super clean and super easy to set up. So I highly recommend these floor mats, and I really do appreciate LazFit sponsoring this video. And with that, let's get back to the video. Okay, now let's talk suspension. This is a pretty important piece of your lift, and I think it comes down to 2 things. Number 1, what is your budget? And number 2, what do you want to do with your 4Runner? And if you are being honest about what you want to do with your 4Runner, do you want to build the suspension for what you want to do, or do you want to kind of just go overboard and, buy a suspension that's probably overkill for what you're going to do with your 4Runner? Now, you may have noticed this sick Bilstein 8112 setup sitting behind me. I'm pumped about this thing. It's definitely overkill for what I want to do, but I'll give you some, budget, more, regular options that I think are still good options that are not overkill for a regular 4Runner lift. So what I think from my reading, what I've determined, and your mileage may vary, just what I've read, I think the best suspension options that I would consider, and I was considering for the 4Runner, are number 1, the OEM TRD Pro Fox suspension that comes in the TRD Pro. If you get that thing with a Westcott lift, you can do a 3-inch lift in the front, 2-inch lift in the rear, and you can have a really nice plush setup that's probably going to be reliable, that's going to ride really well on the road, something that's pretty comfortable. So that's a really, really good option, and it's also pretty budget friendly. You can find them to $1,000 to $1,500 probably in the used market, so check those out. The other one that I would consider is the iBox Stage 2 lift. A lot of people seem to really like this iBox lift. I think it's the 2R or something like that. It's the iBox coilovers. You can do, pretty much whatever height lift you want with that within reason, and they are also known to ride pretty well and hold up pretty well over time. So check out the iBox. And the other most commonly recommended shock that's out there that a lot of people seem to like is the Bilstein 6112s and 5160s. I would check those out. Note that I think they ride a little bit more rough on the road, but a lot of people do seem to like them. I just think they're known to have a little bit more of a firmer ride. And that brings me to my final piece, that if budget is not really an option and you're just willing to kind of go overboard like I am and like I'm doing here, I think these are the best option right now. The Bilstein 8112s with the 8100s or the 8100 bypasses in the rear if you have the extra cash. I'm going to go with the regular 8100s because the bypass option adds like $2,000 to the lift. I think these are the best adjustable all-around shock. I know I'm not going to be Baja running my 4Runner, but I do want it to ride nice on the road and perform really well on the trails. These are also rated for about 100,000 miles before you have to rebuild them, which I think is really cool. I really like stuff that's kind of buy it for life, if you will, which is why I like the 4Runner, and maybe you too. So I decided that this was the best option for me, but I hope those other options that I mentioned will help you out. So that's my consolidated shock summary. There's a lot more to what you can think about with shocks. There's a lot of great options in some of the other brands out there, so don't think because I didn't mention them that I don't think they're good, but shocks are really complex, and if I had to narrow it down and I was you, I would look at OEM Fox, iBox, Bilstein 6112s, and maybe these if you want to splurge a little bit. Okay, so number 3 on the list I think that you need to consider when you're lifting your 4Runner is, are you going to get a body mount chop? So if you want to run 34s like I do, or even higher, 35s, you're going to need a body mount chop. So just get over it, I guess. I decided that it's not that big of a deal. We're going to chop a piece of the body mount. And what I will say in my research is if you're doing this, there are some things to know. So I got these cab mount chop plates here. These are from Westcott Designs. They're made of steel, and they're going to be welded on to the spot where we chop the body mount, and then they're going to be painted. So it'll look kind of OEM. It shouldn't stick out too much. These don't have any logos on them. They're very clean. So if you're looking at doing the body mount chop, I would recommend checking these out from Westcott Designs. They're pretty affordable. I'm not sponsored by those guys at all, but just so you know, these are what I'm going to put on. So we're going to chop it and put these on. That's number 3. Now, number 4 is when you're lifting your 4Runner, a lot of people overlook this, but the Panhard correction. So your Panhard bar in the rear of your vehicle helps center your axle. And again, guys, I'm not a mechanic here. This is just like, I'm just a smart guy that likes cars. So the Panhard bar helps center your rear axle from what I understand it, and sometimes you can get this weird like crab walk feeling in the rear axle because it's not centered and it wants to walk one way or another when you lift a vehicle because it kind of messes up the geometry of that bar. So one thing you can do when you're lifting your vehicle, and really you should do this anywhere from like a 1 to 3 inch lift, and I think a lot of people don't do it and it inhibits your ride quality, you should get a Panhard correction. Now, I got this from I'm Keith, I believe is the name of the company. Maybe how you pronounce it. This is a weld-on Panhard correction. I wanted to do it right. I don't want to have some bolt-on piece there. They do make bolt-on ones. Dr. KDSS is a good one if you want to just do a bolt-on job at your house. I'll be taking the 4Runner to a shop to do some of the body mount cutting and the welding, so I figured might as well weld it on there. So I got the weld-on version. We're going to weld this on down there and then adjust the Panhard bar, and basically it allows the Panhard bar to come up and be level again. So that's something that I think for handling, you have a $50,000 vehicle here, or $30,000 to $50,000 vehicle. You want it to handle well. You don't want it to drive like crap just because you lifted it. So do it right. This is cheap, and then welding it on was not that much. Getting it set up is not that expensive. So I would recommend checking out the Panhard correction if you're lifting your 4Runner. Don't skip that. I have a bonus tip for you in just a second after we get to number 5. So it's actually gonna be a total of 6. But number 5 is the needle bearing in the front left driver's side. Always goes bad in 4Runners when you lift them. They actually have a problem going bad in general anytime. 4Runners just, sometimes they go bad. It's a pretty common thing that happens. So there's a needle bearing on the driver's side. There's regular ball bearing on the passenger side. but the needle bearing on the front left of the driver's side frequently goes bad. So there's a common fix for this, and that's through a company called East Coast Gear Supply. They make a clamshell bushing that replaces the needle bearing in the 4Runner. So when you lift it and it changes your suspension geometry a little bit, this is an easy thing that you can do while you're at it to just avoid having a headache in the future. So you're already under there, you're already pulling the car apart. If you're taking it to a shop, you might as well just buy this cheap part. It's like 70 bucks from East Coast Gear Supply. I'm not sponsored by those guys either. But from what I've read, this thing just completely solves the problem, removes the needle bearing, changes it with the clamshell bushing, and you're good to go. So that's number 5. The bonus tip that I wanted to give you is for ride quality of the 4Runners, a lot of times people change out the entire suspension. Bonus tip, change out your bump stops. This is something that came up a lot. A lot of folks that change out their bump stops really, really like the ride quality, because when you're bottoming out, when you're off-road, it doesn't feel as hard as the factory OEM bump stops. So get some bump stops, some aftermarket bump stops. There's a bunch of different options to pick from. Get some aftermarket bump stops. You can change them at home pretty easily. And that way, when you bottom out, if you're off-roading, it'll be a lot more plush and a lot more cushy. And a lot of times they're different sizes to account for your lift. So look into bump stops as well if you're lifting your 4Runner. Well, all right, guys, those are the top 5 or 6 things I think that you really need to know as a starting point if you're going to lift your 4Runner. This was stuff that, again, I learned over a period of multiple weeks of research, trying to figure out where to start in lifting my 4Runner. So I hope that my research can help you. If you only take what I researched here today and implement it for yourself, it should be a pretty good starting point for you if you're trying to get a lift going. But with that said, there's, depending on your own personal circumstance, double click into all the different categories that I shared here today. There might be a better lift and suspension setup for you. There's a lot of other suspensions that are great out there that I just didn't mention because that's just not something that I was considering based on my research. But everything that I found, I think, is a pretty good place to start. And if you only implemented what I gave you here today, you'd have a good place to jump off with your 4Runner. If you like this content, follow along for more. I'm going to do the full build series of this 4Runner, and we're also going to test it in the North Georgia mountains off-roading, so look out for that. And if you like car reviews in general and 4Runner content, subscribe for more. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. Again, I'm John with Cars No Cap, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.